Lego Brothers. Due to circumstances beyond our control, we are legally obligated to bring you our review of Rayman Legends. If you're wondering what the hell a Rayman is, that's understandable. There hasn't been a proper Rayman game before Rayman Origins for about 8 years or so. The character is identified by his lack of arms and legs, prominent nose, and purple body with a white ring on it. He sort of looks like a goofy-looking Disney-ass Backstreet Boy, only not nearly as annoying because thankfully he doesn't talk. I know people aren't really big on the whole silent protagonist in video games thing, but I think there's a lot of room in modern gaming for good storytelling without words. In fact, the best video games do just that. They elicit an emotional response through interaction with the game, which doesn't always require cutscenes or dialogue. Sometimes all it takes is getting yourself turned into a chicken by a douchebag wizard guy. The levels in this game have you doing an endless array of interesting things. There's running, there's jumping off walls, there's swinging from ropes, there's punching enemies, there's floating across gaps with your helicopter hair, there's running up walls and swimming and flying on little mosquito things. There's platforms that you move and create and rotate as you go. You get chased by fire and dragons and big swarms of angry bug things. There's forest levels and fire levels and ice levels and water levels and maze levels and sand levels, guacamole platforms, death cake, and I shit you not, a mariachi level. Okay, sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. My lawyers have advised me to relax a little. The audio-visual experience of this game, even though it's in 2D, is exceptionally aesthetically pleasing. Unlike the last 2D game I played, which looked a little bit like a bad Flash game at points, the visuals in this game are really well rendered in 2D. There are elements in some of the levels that are rendered in 3D to give the feeling of being really huge. I bought this game on Steam and I played it on my TV. I'm told that the Wii U version of this game has one player controlling Murphy, the little green guy, on the Wii U gamepad, and he can do things like cut ropes and move platforms around for the other players. In the version of the game I played, this was done with the Y button. This gave me much more control over what was going on, but also felt a little more hectic while I was also running and jumping around. But I appreciated having far more control over it than if somebody was doing it for me. Not that I don't trust Charlie, I mean, I do. In fact, I trust him to do the rest of this review for me. Kind of.
I hate you. Video games with a live system tend to have one of two problems.
One,
the overall difficulty of the game is made far too easy to make it more playable / beatable, or two, they're rarely challenging yet beatable games unless you go through the arduous process of getting Asianly good at it. So, more often than not, designers tend to sacrifice difficulty for playability, making it easier and sometimes not as enjoyable. The concept of a live system implies that they want dying to be a rarer occurrence, expecting you to be actually good at the game, so that every time that you do die,
and you will,
you're forced into redoing all the things you did perfectly the first time.
It kinda sucks.
Rayman Legends is a little more evolved in this sense because it ditches the concept of lives entirely. It lets you try and retry as many times as you want for as long as you want. It's also very forgiving because it gives you numerous checkpoints throughout the level. So missing one jump one time or trying something because you don't know what's going to happen doesn't have any consequence. This allows the game to have levels that are far more challenging but still be playable. The results of this are some levels that are fairly laid back, non-threatening.
This is pretty good.
And some levels that are also impossible, with most levels falling somewhere in between, thankfully. Even so, every level is very well designed with a clear theme and tone, of great music, and deceptively challenging obstacles. None of which, by the way, could Mark do at all. Spoiler alert, he actually does suck at video games.
God, something's wrong with this controller.
You know, you're my brother and all, but you really are useless at this. The progression through the game is also based on your performance. There are things to collect in each level, and the more you collect, the more that you're able to unlock and play. It rewards you actually for discovering the secrets and getting the otherwise boring collectibles. Everything in the level that you can get has a purpose that directly influences your game experience. And as if that weren't enough, when you beat a boss of a world, a musical level for that world is unlocked. Now you might be wondering, what is a musical world? Well, I'd really love to tell you, but frankly, I can't. I just really want you to experience this for yourself. I will say one thing though. I will never think of Black Betty in the same way. Ever. Ever. Alright, I'd love to keep hanging out and talking, but I kind of hate you.
He is a treasure. For all you completionists out there, there's lots to do in this game, even after you've collected everything in the game. There's challenges that are posted daily and weekly, so even after you've gone through all of the game's worlds and unlocked everything, there's still stuff to do. Your advancement through the game is contingent on all of your scores being pooled together to reach a certain level, so it's in your interest to cooperate. Unlike other 4-player cooperative platformer games. Also, I should mention that when you die in this game, if you're playing with other players, you turn into this big balloon version of yourself, and other players can actually go up and pop you during the middle of the level, and you stay alive in the middle of the level, so you don't have to start all over again. You'd think this would make the game much, much easier, but Charlie and I played it together, and I can tell you with authority that there are lots of levels where having 2 or more players might make it a little bit easier, but there's lots of levels where having more than one player makes it a lot harder, and a lot of levels where having more than one player or just having one player doesn't matter at all. It's still really hard. It's challenging, fun, and engaging without being too tedious or punishing. Rayman Legends isn't a good game. It's a great game. It's a shining example of how one game can have excellent level design, attention to detail, and respect for the player, all while being challenging enough for adults and fun enough for kids. It's all the things about the classic video games that we love, mixed together with all the lessons that developers have learned over the years about platform games.
20,000 lums! Out of 20,001.
20,000 and one? What's the one for?
I don't know. No game's perfect, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Buy it. Play it. Alright, that wraps up our review for Rayman Legends. Federal law requires us to inform you that next week we'll be reviewing Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs. Thank you for watching Super Lego Brothers. We'll see you next mission.